There we go. All right. So if you guys are on your assignment, you're already here. Articles of Confederation and video and notes. Basically, the video is me just telling you what you're going to be doing. Right now, if you guys actually will just open up the Google drawing itself, and you can have this open. I'm going to help you guys get your answers for this. If you guys will open your copy of this, get it open, and I will go through and I'll kind of tell you what you need to have to answer these questions. Okay, so you guys open this up. Basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through these notes and I'm going to show you what's going on. And then as I present it to you, you will be getting your answers. And then as you're getting your answers, we'll be done here shortly. Okay, so you have this open. I'll answer this one. I'll answer all of these. I will answer all of these. All right. And then here in about 15 minutes, we'll be done. And then you guys can head out. So be on your Google drawing, and I'll go ahead and start with this. So the Confederation era is from 1781 to 1789. Just to think about it this way, and I told you guys yesterday, we're a brand new nation. All right. We just got our freedom from Britain. We don't have like anything. Imagine us being like a baby as a country. No laws, no Bill of Rights, no government officials, nobody to run the government, no president, currency. We don't have any of it because all of it was King George of England before us. All right. So now the war is over. Now what do we do? Okay. Well, America was now an independent nation, having won the Revolutionary War. But now what are they going to do? What would the country and the government look like? Okay. So that's what we're going to dive into now. So the Articles of Confederation themselves. All right. The Articles of Confederation was the name of the first government of the United States. Okay. This was the name of the very first government that we had. It had been started back in 1776 in the Continental Congress and finally was approved by all the states in 1781. All right. So again, your first question that you have on yours is the Articles of Confederation was a weak system of government. Why do you think that was the case? I'm going to get into that here in a second. All right. So definitions: Constitution is a document that sets out the laws and principles of a government. Confederation is alliance of independent states. So we have a constitution now. Back then, we had a confederation. So we were an alliance of independent states. So all of our states were different from one another. They were allies. The Constitution that we have now puts us all as the United States of America, right? We weren't the United States yet. Okay, so because of that, think about it this way. If the Articles of Confederation is just a bunch of alliances between states, so that would be saying like Pennsylvania is a completely different state than New York. And New York's different than Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is different than Virginia. And Virginia is different than North Carolina. And they're not all a part of the United States. They are independent states. They're by themselves. They're just friends with one another. So they're technically different countries at this time. Having their different laws and everything, they're just allies per se. Okay, so that should allow you to answer, why do you think that was a weak system of government? Okay, this was a weak system. We tried it before, letting the states be their own separate nations and then just being allies with one another, but it ended up kind of being a failure. So my question to you is, why were the Articles of Confederation? Why was it a weak system of government, and why do you think that's the case? So you guys can go ahead and answer that now. Partially over. Again, it's an alliance. It's not right now. Like I said, right now we are the United States. We are all one. We are 50 states, but together we make the United States. Back then it wasn't that way. They were different states, and they were not all together. They were not all united. They were just allies. So while you're working on that, we'll go ahead and go to the next one. So the Articles of Confederation was weak on purpose. Americans were afraid of a strong national government. After all, they had fought a war over it. Remember, they were fighting to get away from a government that was super strong like King George. The national government under the Articles did not have the power to tax or enforce laws. So you got to think about it like this. It's pretty crazy. It's a weak government if your government cannot tax you or enforce the law. Okay. Right now, every American pays taxes, goes to the government, and the government, is supposed to redistribute those taxes for the people on like roads and policemen and all these things that take tax money. But the government couldn't tax you and they couldn't enforce the law. So really, it's like, what the heck is the point of the government at the time? Okay, so now we're on to the can and can'ts of your section on the Constitution. So you'll see the can and can't. You'll go ahead and put in these powers on your slide. So when we get to it, you guys have on yours, Congress can and can't. You'll start filling in these can and can'ts. All right. So right now we have Congress can and can't. So Congress could get the power to establish an army. So you guys need to put that in for can. They can make their own army. All right. So on your slide, all right, you would put Congress can, and then you would put establish an army. All right. So they're able to establish an army. What they couldn't do, so this is the United States government. The United States government could not draft soldiers. So they could make an army, but they couldn't make you be in the army, right? Everyone at the age of 18, when you're a male and you turn 18, you have to put your name into the draft essentially, or put your name out there. And in case the government needs you, you have to go fight for the country. Back then, you could have an army, but you had to have volunteer soldiers. People had to volunteer to be in the army. Some people do now, but you couldn't make anybody. All right. The next one, they could declare war. Congress could declare war. The government could declare war, but they couldn't. So you should be putting declare war in the can section, but they couldn't tax their citizens. So your government could go to war with anybody, but they can't tax you to make any money. So how are you going to pay for war if you can't tax your citizens for money, right? Right now, our U.S. government taxes us, and some of our taxes goes to our military to help us and protect us and keep us safe. Okay, next one, they could pass new laws. Our government could pass new laws, which is good, right? Congress was given the power to pass laws, but they couldn't pass laws without 9 states' approval. So you got to think about it like this. We have 13 colonies. You cannot pass a law until you get 9 of the 13 to accept that law, right? So that seems easy. It's easier said than done when you try to get 9 people out of 13 to all agree to the same thing. I mean, think about it. If I took all of you guys and I put 13 of you together and I said, hey, all of you need to agree on this same thing, I bet you more than 9 of you probably wouldn't agree on it. Because we're all different. We all have different points of view. So your can on this is pass new laws. Your can't pass laws without 9 states' approval. They could change the articles. So they could change our laws, change our rules. Okay. Congress, our government could change the laws, change the articles. But they couldn't accept the articles without all 13 states' approval. So now it's even crazier. They could change our government, but you had to have all 13 states to approve, okay? That'd be like right now somebody trying to pass a law, and you had to get all 13 people to agree to the law, okay? Or even today, like let's say 13 states to agree to the law. Kansas and Colorado, I bet they don't agree on the same laws, and Kansas and Nebraska wouldn't agree on the same laws, and Colorado or Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas and California and Florida, we're not all going to agree to the same thing. So this was a very difficult time because you could change the rules, but you had to have everyone agree, and that's just never going to happen. So it was a very weak system of government at the time. They could add new states. So we had 13 colonies. Our government could add more at the time. They could add new states. So you should be getting that into the can section. But they couldn't add a new state without 9 states' approval. So again, you have 13 colonies. Unless 9 of the 13 want to add a new state, you couldn't do it. And I'm telling you, 9 out of 13 is a lot more difficult than you think. So your can under the Constitution is add new states. Your can't is add a new state without 9 states' approval. Okay, now we are on to the Articles of Confederation. So you are now on, hold on, my bad. You're now on to the states themselves, I believe. Okay, I believe you should be on the states now. Okay, so the states were now given the power to get one vote in Congress. So every state got one vote. All right. So these are kind of the states' rules now. States were given the power to get one vote. All right. There are other cans. So the next section of cans. The states could tax citizens and create taxes on trade. So your second one down, all right, is they could tax their citizens. All right. And I'm recording this, so and you have this copy online so if you, in case you need it. But second one, they could tax their citizens and create taxes on trade. Third one is they could ignore the orders made by Congress. So you got to think about it like this. That's like saying the state could ignore orders made by our government. That would be insane if that happened today. That would be like if our president and our national government, right, made a law for everybody in the United States, but then yet Kansas was like, nah, we're not going to follow that. We're not going to do that. We're going to do whatever we want. That can't happen today. But back then, states had more power than the national government, which is unheard of. There's a reason why we started off struggling. They could also give money and troops to Congress. So remember, our government could not, so when I say Congress, I'm talking about our government. Our government could not draft soldiers. They had to have volunteers, but our states could give the government money and troops if they needed it. Think about that states being more powerful than your government. So your states can give money and troops to Congress. What they couldn't do, so now you have a can't. States could not wage war without the agreement of Congress. So that Congress, again, means the federal government. So think about it like this. States can get their own troops. They have money. They have their own troops. They have their own armies. Like Kansas, not at the time, but let's say like Kansas has their own army. But back then, so let's say in 13 colonies, let's say, let's just go with a main one. Let's say Pennsylvania, okay? Pennsylvania had a lot of power, but they could not go to war without our government agreeing, right? That would be nuts. That would be like right now in 2020 if Kansas was like, yeah, let's go declare war on Canada. Kansas can't declare war on Canada. Our nation could, right? Because we're the United States. But back then, we were our own individual states. You couldn't fight a war without the government agreeing to it. And if the government agreed to it, you'd probably go as a whole country. So powers of Congress, powers of the states, okay? You should have these powers. I've got this for you, power to do this, power to do this. I've kind of discussed that, but if you need to look at that to help you get the rest of your assignment, you can. You guys can also watch this video later, but right now I'm going to move on to the weakness of the articles. So that way this video is not too long for you. Since the national government could not tax, okay, our government could not tax, the national money was worthless. Debt became a huge problem. Okay, that'd be like Kansas having a different currency than the government. Okay, so like you have to have different money in Kansas. You'd have to have different money in Nebraska. You'd have to have different money in Florida and California and New York. And instead of one national currency like we do now. So at the time, the national money was worthless. It didn't have no point. Debt means that you owe money. So we were owing money. We were in debt. Biggest problem was that the soldiers who had fought in the American Revolution had not been paid and they were mad. I remember a lot of people signed up to fight against the British, not because they actually wanted to defeat the British, but because they were expecting a paycheck, right? Some of the government at the time was like, hey guys, I'll pay you if you help us fight against Britain and make us a free country. And they're like, yeah, sure, I'll do it for pay. But now when you win, you don't have any money and you can't pay anybody. So most of the soldiers were farmers and they were unable to pay their debts. So farmers were going broke and were not able to make any money. So effects on farmers: to increase the farm production during the American Revolution, farmers borrowed money for land, seeds, and tools. When the war was over, demand for crops decreased, so the farmers did not get the money they needed to pay off their debts. All right. So they're borrowing money because they don't have any. And then the demand for crops decreased. So they borrowed money to make crops, and then no one's buying the crops. So now they're even in more debt, right? And then you got Shays' Rebellion. You can watch this video. Basically what happens, farmers were taken into court, then to jail, and their land was taken away from them. Why? Mostly because if you owed money, back then they put you in jail. If you owed money, you were put in jail, okay? And you couldn't pay your debt back, you'd go to jail. So in 1786, an armed revolt of farmers against the state government took place in Massachusetts. It's called Shays' Rebellion. The revolt was led by Daniel Shays, a Revolutionary War veteran. So Daniel Shays leads a rebellion of farmers, Massachusetts farmers, against the government, saying, hey, we got no money. We fought in the American Revolution. We're not getting our money for it. You guys don't have any currency to give us. We're going broke. We're trying to make our crops, and you guys are still not able to pay us. Yet we're going to jail because that's how you punish people that owe money. They were angry about it, so they revolted. So then the question is, how did Shays' Rebellion show the weakness of the Articles of Confederation? You can be specific on that, all right? So that's the question that you have here, all right? So now I know I went through that pretty quickly, but you have all of this stuff on here. If you watch this, I'm going to put the recording up. I've got the slides for you. I went through it, I know, but at the same time,